Hey, Salut Friends. This week we had the release of a new Sauvage flanker called Eau Forte, which was dubbed as a parfum. I made a video on it, thought it was a failure on all levels. Seems like a majority of the people have arrived at the same conclusion. It got me thinking of the other men's parfum version fragrances that Dior has released in the past. There was Eau Sauvage Parfum in 2012, which is great. Even Sauvage Parfum from 2019, which I liked at the time of the release, seems to have grown on many others. For this video, I thought I will do a recap of these two, Dior Homme Parfum and Fahrenheit Le Parfum, both of which were released in 2014, hence completing 10 years. I can only imagine what it was like back then when they were released. The first sort of 2000s parfum version of a fragrance by a major brand, openly marketed as such, which got a wider release that I was able to find is Terre d'Hermès Parfum from 2007, just back there. Since then, we have had every brand doing parfum version of their fragrances. Eventually, we had these two releases from Dior, which pushed further on how a parfum can be in terms of boldness, signature, density, and how diffusive, which even many niche brands could not do at the time. Who else to create them than the person who can even be dubbed as the master of flankers, our Lisan Al-Khaib, François Desmarchis. And it is not easy to do flankers to successful fragrances. Sometimes it's even more difficult to live up to the originals, and here he certainly delivered. Let's look at them one by one. First is Fahrenheit Le Parfum. The original EDT is legendary, which has had several flankers, the absolute version being a standout. This parfum version is sincere in that it keeps many of the elements that made the original Fahrenheit great and simply modernizes them, notably by bringing in a boozy vanilla. The original idea of Fahrenheit Eau de Toilette itself is just wildly brilliant, especially for the 80s. This thought of capturing fueling volatility in a bottle in this untamed fashion is nothing short of masterful. This parfum version also opens with citruses, notably mandarin, with its short-lived fruity sweetness. Right after comes this huge push of boozy bourbon vanilla. Some have even speculated that it is a rum accord, but I think it's just the opening of the vanilla, which has this alcohol liquor-like facet. Along with that comes the ozonic violet leather accord, which has been copied by so many fragrances at this point. The original Fahrenheit plays this trick where it emphasizes the cooler side of its elements like the violet and its gasoline accord, which in turn we perceive as warm. The parfum version, on the other hand, seems to actually embrace the warmer aspects, notably with the vanilla. It has the dispersion of spices as well, pepper, coriander, and nutmeg, which adds dimensions, notably a soft pungency to the violet, leather, and vanilla. They seem to have removed some of the floral notes like carnation and hawthorn, which are not as fashionable today. I feel like the other florals, notably jasmine and lily of the valley, are cleverly hidden here. Lots of amber and patchouli come through as the scent dries down. There is tonka in addition to the vanilla, so it has this controlled sweetness which maintains some of the maturity, nowhere near as those Jean Paul Gaultier flankers which can be sugary, candied sweet. Vetiver and cedar also from the original, bringing in the woody aspects. This suede leather also becomes prominent in the dry down in addition to the woods. There is this nuance of hay in the overall scent profile, which can be earthy, nutty, and dry. The sweetness does make it more approachable than the original, especially with the toning down of the ozonic gasoline aspect. It may not be as intricate as the Eau de Toilette, but the uncomplicated approach of this one tells the same message. If the Eau de Toilette was more of a brooding, debonair, rugged uncle, this is a charming, outgoing, yet mysterious nephew, is what I imagine. In summary, I really enjoy this, as you can see from the dent. Performs rather well, lasts 10 hours, though the projection is more moderate. Fantastic fall, winter, cold weather type of fragrance. Now let's go to Dior Homme Parfum, which I did a funny review of as my first video, and since that time it still seems to be the holy grail designer fragrance for many people. Some love it so much that they have like a dozen bottles of this stuff. The 75 ml is more sought after, though I have to say that in spite of some minor differences, the newer version is just as good. It's just like the equalizers of the music player have been tweaked a bit. In most cases, the perception of the 75 ml being better is because it's aged and oxidized in the last 5 to 10 years, when eventually in 2021, this was moved to the 100 ml bottle. The parfum, of course, is in line with the Dior Homme DNA, but when you compare the gap between Dior Homme Parfum and the original Dior Homme, it is more than, let's say, Fahrenheit Le Parfum and its Eau de Toilette, if that makes sense. Takes it in a borderline oriental woody leather direction. Some of the aromatic elements like the lavender and sage are gone. The cacao note has been toned down. The fruity, delicate pear changed to this big, ripe orange. The lipsticky unisex iris has lost its tenderness, the violet makeup side. Now it has aged and become this robust, earthy, waxy element. The soft suede leather replaced by a thick, oily, charred, crackling, smoky leather, which gets drier with time. What is also superimposed is essentially a rose oud combo in the middle of the original Dior Homme structure. The oud supports the pungency, leathery and smoky aspects. A dark rose giving at least some color and softness. The ambrette is still present, adding to the musky aspects of the iris. A smoky, rough sandalwood, which is similar to the one in Santal Noir, joins the ambrette and forms a reassuring woody base, all coming together to form this butch, assertive smell. If the original Dior Homme and Dior Homme Intense are smart, sleek young men who have the qualities to navigate the world and reach their desire without much notice, this is a mature, suave, affirmative gentleman who makes a statement when he enters the room, someone who cannot be avoided and had to be dealt with. Another fantastic cool weather fragrance. Really enjoy wearing it. Went through a 75 ml and close to finishing a 100 ml bottle of this stuff. Performance is huge, lasts till shower basically. Along with the original, which is a milestone fragrance, and Dior Homme Intense, a modern classic at this point, probably the best triad of men's designer fragrances at the moment and still in production. Sometime around 2020, when the new Dior Homme was released and the Vitco event impacted supply chains, they seem to have been discontinued, but now they are available at least in the EU. I think it's more difficult to find them in the US, unfortunately. Sauvage apparently does so well over there that they even released the new flanker there first, but Dior Homme Original, Parfum and Fahrenheit Parfum are seemingly difficult to sell. So the best option is probably to get them from discounters or by paying a premium, which is not great. Hope they remain in production, at least in limited quantities, because in spite of being copied so many times, even by niche brands, these still stand out as some of the better fragrances in the last 10 years. Even as a parfum, one would imagine all the other designers would try to replicate the signature, seeing the success of these two, but none of them have been able to create anything remotely bombastic as Dior has with these. Sure, performance is always not the only expectation, but when you are in the mood for something big and bold, these are much better compared to the so-called parfum fragrances from other designers like Armani and Bulgari. The ambiguous part is it is not clear even if Dior can create something like these again. They did do Sauvage Elixir, but now we have Francis Coupejean, and Dior itself seems to be going in the more polite, reserved, mass-appealing direction. So let's wait and see what they deliver in the next 10 years. Either way, that's been my recap of Dior Homme and Fahrenheit Parfum for completing a decade run. Thanks for watching, take care and ciao.